Hey everyone, welcome back. It is Icon. Thank you so much for checking out another episode of Esports Analysis. In today's video, we're going to take a look back at Saturday's bracket, all the matchups. We're going to preview what's to come on Sunday. I'm going to predict both the semifinals, who I think is going to end up winning this event, and we will take you through all of the action up through Sunday morning. So with that, I figure that this is the longest day, so I want to go ahead and I want to hop right into this. First map of the day was over here in Group B. It was Atlanta versus London, and unfortunately the day started in kind of that tumultuous way, right? London ended up not having somebody in. They basically forfeited the first 100 points before they were told that they had to play it. So they started basically down 100-0 in that hard point. Then the rest of the series, I feel like it really kind of took the wind out of them a little bit. They did come back. They played really well in the Search and Destroy. They won the Search 6-1. They've been having a pretty good weekend in Search and Destroy for talking about London. But when it came to the last two respawns, Atlanta was able to take control. And just as we predicted, Atlanta made it through, and they were the first team in the semifinal, would put London into the losers bracket final for Group B. After that, we went back across. We did the other winners bracket final on the opposite side. We did Toronto versus Rocker, and I feel like this is probably, at least for me, this might have been the biggest surprise of the day. I can't imagine too many people would have had this, but right off the get-go, the very first hardpoint map, Toronto came out, won it by 60. They ended up losing the Search and Destroy on Piccadilly, which is a little bit odd because they're probably best, or they've been best at Search and Destroy, and that, I know they only lost by 2 rounds, but had a map gone their way, I probably would have thought that the S&D would have went their way. Then they came out, won the domination by 8. That was a little bit closer on Hackney Yard. And then they came out and just absolutely obliterated Minnesota again, 250-109. And I would be shocked if somebody didn't say that was an upset. I can't imagine when those two teams squared off that Toronto is the team that people would have getting out of this bracket. With New York, how they've been playing, with Florida coming off their recent victories, and Minnesota, the consistency that they've shown all year. Toronto, the team that gets out. I'm super happy for them. I'm glad that they're seeing success. I just would not have expected it. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to put Minnesota in the losers bracket final here, and we'll move on Toronto into the finals. One thing that I'll mention real quick, is that in this matchup between Toronto and Minnesota, this is kind of the first time that we've seen GodRx look a little bit human. Even Silly didn't play that well. Assault was great, as is usual. Asim didn't play that well. GodRx had like a 0.8 KD. Silly had a 0.7. So when it comes to them, you're used to them being in that 1.3, 1.2 range. And for them to just come out and not really play that well is just, it's not something that we're familiar with, right? We always see Minnesota perform when the pressure is on, and in that one, they just didn't. So after that, we went on to OGLA versus Paris. The first two maps of this one were super close. When it came to the hard point, it was 250-231. Optic ended up clutching up in the S&D. Also, they won that 6-5. And then the Dom was a blowout. So we had this one correctly picked. So losers bracket semis over here. Optic went through, got that quick 3-0, moved them into the losers bracket final against London. Couple things that I wanted to point out against in this matchup here with Optic is that the biggest difference, that if you go through and you watch these over and you really look at who's controlling the map for OGLA, Chino's doing okay, right? He's not playing out of his mind. He's just giving them, he's like that solid role player. That's what he's playing right now. But Dashy and Slasher are absolutely phenomenal. Now, it just so happens that two of the best main ARs in the game are playing on the same team. So Dashy's been switching it up, obviously. But what they've been doing in terms of not only their KD, but the time inside the hard point, they lead their team with the time inside the hard point, and they're just so aggressive, and they're winning battles inside the hard point, and they're giving Optic that lift that they need. Now, hopefully, Kenny was kind of average, right? Kenny and TJ, they had decent days. I think they were like even in the KD range, but if Chino can just give them a little bit more, I think they're going to be a team that people have to look out for. So good on Optic getting through losers bracket semis right here against Paris. After that, we went back across. We did the losers bracket semi between New York and Florida. And, man, this was a little bit of a rough one, right? New York ended up winning this 3-0. So Florida went 0-2 at CDL Florida. This is a team I can't figure out. After winning an event, they come out, they don't play well against Minnesota in the first round yesterday on Friday. They come out, the hard point they lose by 50. Now the S&D was close. They lost that by 1. The Dom they lost by about 35. And that was it, right? If you look kind of across the board, the biggest thing that stands out to me when I'm looking at the KDs here is that I feel like this is the first tournament that Skies has been average. Skies, now he had like a 0.9 overall KD in this matchup, and that's kind of on par with how I'm feeling about GodRx. You're so used to seeing Skies and GodRx really fry for their teams. They're kind of just that model of consistency on those two rosters, and they both really didn't have very good Saturdays. So on the other side, the biggest key for me when it comes to New York is that those SMGs are frying out of their minds. So Mac is the addition that they needed. He had a 1.3 KD in this matchup, as did Attach. So not only is Mac frying, but he's giving confidence, I feel like, to Attach. Now they kind of have a duo from that SMG position that's pushing people, being super aggressive. And this is what I thought we would see against Toronto in that first matchup on day one. That's not how it went, but I'm getting a little excited for New York because they're fun to watch. They play really aggressively. Their SMGs are frying. So it's interesting to watch. I can't wait to see how they progress. So after that matchup, we went back across. We did the losers bracket finals between OGLA and London. And this one, another hot 3-0, right? Optic ended up going 6-0 on the day. They won the hard point by 50. They won the S&D 6-1. The Dom was a little bit closer. They only won by 20. But again, if you go through and look at the stats, Dashy, 1.2 KD in this matchup. The biggest one for this, and if Kenny can continue to do this, they're going to be a team to watch out for because Kenny had a 1.44 KD in this matchup overall. Now again, TJ was also good, but Chino had a 0.75. They're missing that fifth player, right? The 4 and an average player are easily enough to beat teams like Paris and London, but when you have to compete against the Atlantas of the world, the Dallases, what we thought would be maybe the Minnesotas of the world, then things aren't quite so easy, right? So with that, we can go ahead, and I thought London would win this. I just felt pretty confident with them coming into the weekend. I was a little bit unsure of Optic, but that's not how it turned out. So Optic came through, and that sets up our first finals matchup or semifinals matchup between Toronto and Optic. We'll talk about that in a little more in a second. But last matchup of the day was losers bracket final over here in Group A between New York and Minnesota. And again, this is one that New York came out, was a quick 3-0, even though I will say these were all really close, right? Especially that Ramaza hardpoint. I thought for sure that Minnesota was going to end up winning on this first map on Ramaza hardpoint. They had P4. All they needed to do was just hold the end of P4. New York was able to get in. I think it was Mac. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure it was Mac. Was able to get in for 1 second, which pushed it over to P5, which New York had, and Minnesota never even got close. I think it was like 249 to 220, somewhere in that range. And they were able to rattle off all 30 seconds. Minnesota couldn't get in for a single point. So that, to me, was super impressive. But what might have even been more impressive is what New York was able to do in the Search and Destroy, being able to clutch up, win a 6-5 Search and Destroy. When I think of the New York subliners right now, I'm thinking of a team that's really good in respawn, really good at the SMG position, really good at playing quickly and playing fast. And I'm a little bit surprised to see the success that they're having in Search and Destroy also. I think a lot of the confidence that's coming from the Respawn game types is also spilling over into the S&D game type, and I'm happy for him. Again, Mac had a 1.2 KD in this matchup, Attach 1.1, Accuracy 1.1, Zuma 1.1. So all these guys are slaying. I did correctly pick this, so the only thing I really missed is I thought London would have been the second team out, but OGLA came out and they've been playing really well. So this brings us to predicting Day 3. I know we're 10 minutes into the video, but there was a whole lot that happened on Saturday. I wanted to make sure that I covered it all. So if we're down here between Atlanta and New York, this is a matchup I cannot wait for. The SMGs that have widely been renowned as the best in the game for Atlanta, every event up until now, against the firepower that New York is starting to bring with Mac and Attach. I feel like this is the real final. Even though Toronto and OGLA have been super impressive, I feel like whoever wins between these two teams is going to end up taking it. My guess would be that the majority of people are probably going to take Atlanta here, but I think I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to put New York through. If this was 4, 5, 6 weeks ago, I don't think anybody would have said this, but I've been so impressed with what Mac has brought to the table. Now, I will say, if this was on LAN, I would probably pick a little bit different, because having to do this with a crowd and add an event like that when the bright lights are on and you're in front of a stage in front of hundreds of people, that's a different environment. But since all these people are playing from the comfort of their own home, their own PlayStation, and all that sort of nonsense, I just feel like there's not going to be that much of an edge towards Atlanta. Atlanta has looked fairly beatable in the last couple of events that they've played in. So I'm going to ride the New York Subliner wave. I think that they're going to end up taking it over Atlanta here. This will probably be a 3-2 series. I can't imagine this would be a 3-0 series. I could be wrong, right? I mean, Atlanta could come out and be the typical Atlanta that we're used to seeing, but I'm excited for New York here, and we'll see what happens. If we go to the second semifinal, we have Toronto versus OGLA, and this one I'm shocked, right? I thought for sure Minnesota or Florida would be one of the teams that got through from that group, and the fact that it's Toronto, it has me surprised. And then OGLA, the way that Dashy, I guess this really comes down to what can Dashy bring from the SMG position in this matchup, because Slasher is always going to slay out. There's so many question marks from OGLA. What will Dashy do? Will Chino average a 0.75 KD, or will he get back up into the 1.1 range? If Chino gets a 1.1, then we're really cooking with fire here, because that would be the push that they need. Also, beginning of the day yesterday, we talked about it earlier, but for OGLA, we saw TJ, we saw Kenny not look very good. And then in the second matchup, Kenny had a 1.44, and he looked like the best player that we saw the entire day. So there are so many question marks. What do we get from Chino? What do we get from TJ? What do we get from Kenny? But it's kind of the same thing for Toronto, right? Because all of their young guns, they've never really been in a spot like this so far in this game. There's a lot of pressure, but they've been playing really well. So with so many question marks, is there one team that gives you a little bit more confidence than the other? If I'm picking here, I know Methods has been absolutely unbelievable, but I think with the matchup against Slasher, that kind of evens it out a little bit. I think with this, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give it to OGLA. I could very easily be wrong. This final could very easily be Atlanta versus Toronto, right? I think these two matchups here are probably the closest semifinal matches that we've had all year. So I cannot wait to watch how this plays out. But in this final with New York against OGLA, I just feel more comfortable right now. Like I just said, Optic seems to have so many question marks. Are we going to get the 0.9 Kenny? We're going to get the 1.4 Kenny. We're going to get the 0.8 TJ. We're going to get the 1.2 TJ. We're going to get the 0.75 Chino. We're going to get the 1.0 Chino, right? There are so many question marks outside of Slasher and Dashy that I'm going to go through and I'm going to say, I can't imagine too many people will have this prediction. I'm going to say our winner here is going to be the New York Subliners. Now, again, Mac, Attach, what are they going to bring to the table? Those are the two that I'm really keying in on. If either of those two don't have a good series, I don't think they can win. So like if Mac comes out and puts up a 1.3 and Attach comes out, puts out a 0.8, I don't think that they can win. I think both of them, Mac and Attach, are the keys here. If they come out and they fry like they did against Florida and they have a 1.3 KD, I think they're going to be really tough to stop. And that's why I'm going with New York as our CDL Florida champion. This is another video down in the comments below. Let me know what your predictions are. I can't wait to hear what you guys think, especially in those semifinal matchups, because they're two massive coin flips here, and I'm really interested to see what you guys have to say. So comment down below. Let me know what you guys are thinking. If you're new around here, I put out new videos like this, diagnosing CDL content every single day, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Please leave a like before you head on your way. It really helps out the channel. And with that, guys, thank you so much. Enjoy Championship Sunday. I can't wait to watch it with all of you. So enjoy the weekend. Enjoy these last couple games here. I will talk to you in Monday's upload.